joke? The game's locked up.
I had to use that bit of audio to explain what we're doing, as we're back with Conquering Conker, me trying to figure out exactly how to get Conker's Bad Fur Day 100% stable on the MiSTer FPGA core. Because last time I showed you this video, this area, Enter the Vortex, was very prone to freezing. You could get through it, but it might take you 3 or 4 attempts. But I will show you an entire run through the area here with no crashes whatsoever, but I am going to speed the footage up just so you understand I'm not cutting, but it is a very long segment. And I've been playing around with all sorts of different builds of Conker, MiSTer FPGA Turbo Core, the stock core, Aries, and original hardware. And you will see here Conker is going to die. It can be a little bit of a frustrating segment, but what I've been playing around with is turning off the data cache to TLB. I've also found that that can make this area more stable. I was able to run this 7 times in a row. It's way too much to play Conker, but it worked for me. Now on the memory side of things, you'll see here this is the Turbo Core, the MiSTer Core, Aries, as well as real Nintendo 64 hardware. And in some instances, Aries will have a larger free and largest free memory allocation than any other instance running this, whether it's on MiSTer or on real hardware. But the interesting thing that I'll show later in the video is sometimes that advantage to Aries completely dries up and everything will run basically 1-to-1 on the memory allocation side. So this has been confusing. I kind of expected Aries to be consistently ahead of at least MiSTer and probably real hardware, but what I found in some instances is it's at par, and in other instances it is way ahead, and that's very confusing to me. The good bit of information we did glean now that I have the EverDrive and can test this prototype cartridge out is that the free and largest free across real hardware and the core are so close it's within the margin of error, because honestly if you're 1 frame different then you're going to get a different free memory allocation. So it seems like at least the FPGA core to real hardware is running rock solid consistently on the memory allocation side of things. But let's now move over to real hardware. Sorry if it is a little bit blurry, this is a composite signal through RetroTink 4K, and you're going to see, watch that largest free right there, it is 666420, and I assure you I did not change the numbers whatsoever. You'll understand in just a moment. So the largest free in this cutscene is hanging at a 666 digit with a 420 on the end, and that's going to basically stay consistent until we throw Sweet Corn here into the poo, because it doesn't seem like it's really moving around too much memory on the largest free block. It's writing to other spaces, and this has been a very big curiosity of mine as far as the memory allocations are concerned, because when we play the same area in Aries you're going to see a much larger number. Sometimes it just has more available memory to it, but you'll see here as we throw Sweet Corn into the poo, it jumps up to a 757064, so the largest free block of memory just expanded when we threw the Sweet Corn into the poo lava, for lack of a better term. But let's move over to the MiSTer FPGA core capture, because I want to take a look at that same largest free. Remember it was 666420 over on the real Nintendo 64 side of things, so let's see where we're at on MiSTer FPGA. You're going to see here it's hovering on the 711. As you come around the corner it's 697700. That's right folks, we got 42069, largest free memory allocation in Conker's Bad Fur Day, and I swear the designers probably programmed that in as another joke. All jokes aside, I don't think they did that whatsoever, it just kind of amused me. But the point here is that at least in the core we're getting a largest free block than we are on real hardware, so that is definitely a change, and I'm trying to better understand that. It is all a variable though. There could just be something hiding in RAM on Nintendo 64 that is not here. But the other interesting observation is the largest free when we throw Sweet Corn in is not going to change. This actually jumped up on real Nintendo 64 hardware, where here on MiSTer FPGA it is going to stay at 697700 the entirety of the cutscene until we load out of it and gain control of Conker back. So the question is, what is Aries going to do in this exact same sequence? Is it going to free up more blocks of space, or is it also going to stay consistent? Because this is one area of the game where Aries just has a much largest free memory sequence than either Nintendo 64 hardware or MiSTer FPGA does. And you'll see here as we throw Sweet Corn into the poo, the largest free does change. We have an 8 at the beginning digit, that's 807316. We had a 69 up front before, so there is a much larger block in Aries than there is in Nintendo 64 or MiSTer FPGA, but MiSTer FPGA is the only thing that doesn't actually change its largest free allocation when that cutscene is going on. So it's a situation where memory is not freeing itself up. Now in other instances, comparing things across across the board. Real hardware, MiSTer and Aries, the free and largest free basically are identical. This is what really tripped me up when I started doing more deeper testing of Conker's bad for a day. There were some instances in Aries where I would just have so much more free memory than I would on MiSTer FPGA or real hardware. There's some instances like you see here in the ending cutscene where it's basically within the margin of error as far as that data set is concerned, and that was actually very surprising to me. And I need to look more under the hood of Aries, kind of go through some of the debug stuff, go through the GitHub code, and maybe better understand exactly what is happening here, because that's just a really funny instance of something that is changing in some areas and consistent in others. And if you're wondering why the cutscenes aren't synced, I started them on a synced frame, but the core Aries Nintendo 64 all get out of cycle, so when you see the transitions you will know that is why. But I did make sure I sync these up. But as you follow the numbers on all three screens, you basically see they are near to rock solid identical. That was something that I did not expect. I expected across the entire test that the Aries memory allocations would always be higher than real hardware or MiSTer FPGA, because in many instances they are. It's just a weird situation where sometimes it's not, and that is not super fun for testing and problem solving, because I'm looking for consistency and repeatability here, and the fact that the memory allocation definitely likes to move around on Aries sometimes but not other times is absolutely perplexing to me. When I say Conker has me on the ropes and he's been beating the ever-loving hell out of me in this testing, I mean it. I've gotten a lot of good information out of these tests. I've been talking to some people that work on Nintendo 64 development, kind of showing what's going on, and there are some ideas for the future as to how this could actually be potentially fixed up and have a test ROM on the core. But that could be weeks, it could be months. I could come back to you in the beginning of 2025 and say, hey, test this. And that's always the reality of these situations. The first part is trying to understand the problem, because you'll see here on original hardware everything functions. We have these memory allocations, and sometimes on MiSTer FPGA this area is prone to freezing. But again, I can't stress enough, I've completed a run through of Conker's Bad Fur Day on the Turbo Core with the prototype version of the game, getting 5 total crashes the entire time. So if your threshold is fine with that, honestly this is still a playable experience. It's just one of those things, you need to decide for yourself what you want while I continue to work on this in the background. But I've gotten all of the different data I need, all of the different crash handler reports, all of the different memory maps, and all of the different understanding to now try to go forward and figure out what can be done to get Conker to a 0 crash status, because this is a fun game and now Conker's kind of burned into my brain. I need to better understand what's going on here. But as we go over the wall, you'll see here largest free allocation 710900. Remember that when we go over to the MiSTer FPGA side of things, 710900. These are data points that have been very useful when I kind of take a look at how the crash handler works. Now we've moved over here to MiSTer FPGA, and you will see the frame rate is just going to be better. That's how it works on MiSTer compared to real hardware, and of course the image quality is better. But again, this area is infinitely playable, and if you turn off the TLB data cache, it seems to crash less. I've been chatting with Robert about that with just some presumptions, nothing really concrete yet, but I will definitely be looking that more into the future as far as the background is concerned, because I do some testing that I don't pop into videos. But you'll see here again, as Conker runs around this area, everything is stable until it's not. In this instance when I captured, I just could not get this area to freeze. Last time I captured this area, I was able to freeze it twice, basically in the same spot. And that is a very tricky thing. I know people talk about trying to grab save states, trying to load them into emulation and see what can happen, but the problem is the consistency. I cannot find one area of this game that crashes the exact same way, the exact same time. I may have to go to USB control repeaters to do the same thing twice. But you'll see here on the MiSTer FPGA side of things, the largest free is 722516, which is over what real Nintendo 64 hardware had available for a memory allocation. So sometimes it doesn't seem like the memory allocation affects anything, because when I've crashed there before, I've had more largest free memory than I had on Nintendo 64 in and of itself. So it really seems to be something about how the memory is being written and read to. It could be latency, or it could be something else that could be amended. As you'll see here again in the final cutscene, a little bit further between all 3 cores, we have the same consistency in memory access and allocation. But this cutscene right here is something I have never frozen. I spent the time to run this from start to finish 10 different times on MiSTer FPGA, and every single time it got from the start to the finish with no crashes whatsoever. So that's kind of where we're at with Conker. I've got a metric crap ton of data in as far as memory allocation, how it freezes, the memory maps, all of the different crash handler data, all of the different memory addresses and what's being written to them. And now I just need to figure out with people behind the scenes why that is happening, and that doesn't make for a very fun video. It's just Discord chats back and forth. But I hope you guys have enjoyed Conker Part 1. Part 1 was trying to understand better what's going on here. It is definitely crashing out because some sort of memory accessing issue. Every single time I get a memory map where there is a crash, what it's trying to read and write from is butted up against something else, and it just seems like it must be ingesting garbage data from the next block of memory, the memory address, and that is giving the CPU an issue because it's getting data it shouldn't be getting. So now we're really going to start looking at the Conker files in and of themselves to see what could possibly be changed to make it so that that does not occur. Because again, Conker is a 4 megabyte game, not an 8 megabyte game. It doesn't use the expansion cartridge. So there's a lot of opportunity and options here to see what could be done. But right now, if you want to play Conker's Bad Fur Day on MiSTer FPGA, just use the turbo core, use the prototype ROM, and if you want to, you can turn the TLB cache off to see if you get better consistency. And I've got a lot of people sending in different crash reports, so that's super useful to me. And if you want to send them to me, just grab me on Twitter or Discord, and I'll take a look. But I think we basically exhausted taking a look at Conker in video form. I hope you guys have found this informative, kind of understood better what's going on under the hood of MiSTer FPGA, Nintendo 64, and Conker in and of itself, because we've gone through so many different data points, so many different tests. I hope you guys have all gleaned some information as to how these things actually work and hopefully how we can fix them in the future. But Conker is done for now. The next time you see a video will either mean that I have fixed the problem with somebody or I've completely given up. We'll have to wait and see. Short of that, we're done, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.